Namaskar. Emergence of Gandhi. Towards the end of the First World War, various forces were at work in India and on the international scene. After the end of the war, there was a resurgence of nationalist activity in India and in many other colonies in Asia and Africa. The Indian struggle against imperialism took a decisive turn towards a broad-based popular struggle with the emergence of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi on the Indian political scene. Why nationalist resurgence now? After the war, the conditions in India and influences from abroad created a situation that was ready for a national upsurge against foreign rule. Post-war economic hardships. India contributed in men and money towards the British war efforts. Thousands of Indian men died in the war on various fronts. The food supplies and ammunition and the armies came from the money raised by taxing Indians. When the war ended, all sections of the Indian population were experiencing hardships on various fronts. Industry first, an increase in prices, then a recession coupled with increased foreign investment brought many industries to the brink of closure and loss. They now demanded protection against imports besides government aid. Workers and artisans, this section of the populace faced unemployment and bore the brunt of high prices. Peasantry, faced with high taxation and poverty, the peasant waited for a lead to protest. Soldiers, soldiers who returned from battlefield fields abroad gave an idea of their experience to the rural folk. They were also surprised to return to a country that was impoverished and had less liberty than before. Educated, educated, educated urban classes. This section was facing unemployment as well as suffering from an acute awareness of racism in the attitude of the British, expectations of political gains for cooperation in the war. The contribution of Indians to the British war effort was huge, though it has gone acknowledged. Gandhi and most nationalists extended cooperation to the war effort, and a huge number of Indian troops sacrificed their lives on the war fronts. The contribution of Indians to the British war effort was huge, though it has gone acknowledged. Gandhi and most nationalists extended cooperation to the war effort, and a huge number of Indian troops sacrificed their lives on the war fronts. After the war, there was high expectations of political gains from the British government, and this too contributed towards the charged atmosphere in the country. Nationalist disillusionment with imperialism worldwide. The Allied powers to rally the colonies to their side during the war. To colonies to the Allied powers to rally the colonies to their side during the war. The Allied powers to rally the colonies to their side during the war had promised them an era of democracy and self-determination after the war. During the war, both sides to the war had launched vicious propaganda to malign each other and expose each other's uncivilized colonial record. But soon it became clear from the Parsi Peace Conference and other peace treaties that the imperialist powers had no intention of loosening their hold over the colonies. In fact, they went on to divide the colonies of the vanquished powers among themselves. All this served to further erode the myth of the agricultural and military superiority of whites. As a result, the post-war period saw a resurgence of militant nationalist activity throughout Asia and Africa, in Turkey, Egypt, Ireland, Iran, Afghanistan, Burma, Malaya, the Philippines, Indonesia, Indochina, China and Korea. Impact of Russian Revolution. November 7, 1917. The Bolshevik Party of Workers overthrew the Tsarist regime and founded the first socialist state, the Soviet Union, under the leadership of Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov or Lenin. The Soviet Union unilaterally renounced the Tsarist imperialist rights in China and the rest of Asia, gave rights of self-determination to former Tsarist colonies in Asia, and gave equal status to the Asian nationalities within its borders. The October Revolution. The October Revolution, the October Revolution, the October Revolution, the October Revolution brought home the message that immense power lay with the people and that the masses were capable of challenging the mightiest of tyrants provided they were organized and united and determined. Montagu Chelmsford Reforms and the Government of India Act 1919. The British government, not prepared to part with or even share its power with the Indians, once again resorted to the policy of carrot and stick. The carrot was represented by the insubstantial Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, while measures such as the Rolt Act represented the stick, in line with the government policy contained in Montagu's statement of August 1917. The government announced further constitutional reforms in July 1918 known as Montagu-Chelmsford or Montagu reforms. Based on these, the Government of India Act 1919 was enacted. The main features of the Montagu reforms were as follows: one, one provincial government, introduction of diarchy. The Act introduced diarchy for the executive at the level of the provincial government. Executive 1 diarchy, that is, rule of two executive and councillors and popular ministers were introduced. The government was to be the executive head in the province too. Subjects were divided into two lists: reserved, which included subjects such as law and order, finance, land, revenue, irrigation, etc., and transferred subjects such as education, health, local government, industry, agriculture, excise, etc. The reserved subjects were to be administered by the governor through his executive council of bureaucrats, and the transferred subjects was to be administered by ministers nominated from among the elected members of the Legislative Council. 3. The ministers were to be responsible to the legislature and had to resign if a non-confidence motion was passed against them by the legislature, while the executive councillors were to be responsible to the legislature. For in case of failure of constitutional machinery in the province, the governor could take over the administration of transferred subjects. Also, 5. The Secretary of State for India and the Governor General could interfere in respect of reserved subjects, while in respect of the transferred subjects, the scope for their interference was restricted. Legislature 1. Provincial legislature councils were further expanded and 70% of the members were to be elected. 2. The system of communal and class electorates was further consolidated. 3. Women were also given the right to vote. 4. The Legislative Council could initiate legislation, but the governor's assent was required. The governor could veto bill and issue ordinances. 5. The legislative councils could reject the budget, but the governor could restore it if necessary. 6. The legislature enjoyed freedom of speech. 2. The central government still without responsible government. No responsible government was envisaged in the Act for the government at the all India level. The main points were: Executive 1. The Governor General was to be the chief executive authority. 2. There was to be two lists for administration, central and provincial. 3. The Viceroy's Executive Council of 8 3 were to be Indians. 4. The Governor General retained full control over the reserved subjects in the provinces. 5. The Governor General could restore cuts in grants, certify bills rejected by the central legislature, and issue ordinances. Legislature 1. A bicameral arrangement was introduced. The lower house or central legislative assembly would consist of 145 members, 41 nominated and 104 elected. 52 general, 30 Muslims, 2 Sikhs and 20 specials. And the upper house or council of state would have 60 members, of which 26 were to be nominated and 34 elected. 20 general, 10 Muslims, 3 Europeans and 1 Sikh, as per the figure given by Subhas Kashyap. Second, the Council of State had a tenure of 5 years and had only male members, while the Central Legislative Assembly had a tenure of 3 years. 3. The legislators would ask questions and supplementaries, pass adjournment motions, and vote on a vote a part of the budget, but 75% of the budget was still not votable. Some Indians found their way into important committees, including finance. On the home government in Britain front, the Government of India Act 1919 made an important change. The Secretary of State for India was henceforth to be paid out of the British Exchequer. Drawbacks: the reforms had many drawbacks. One, franchise was very limited. The electorate was extended to some 1.5 million for the central legislature, while the population of India was around 260 million as per one estimate. Two, at the centre, the legislature had no control over the viceroy and his executive council. Three, division of subjects was not satisfactory at the centre. Four, allocation of seats for central legislatures to the provinces was based on importance of provinces. For instance, Punjab's military importance and Bombay's commercial importance. 5. At the level of provinces, division of subjects and parallel administration of two parts was irrational and hence unworkable. Subjects like irrigation, finance, police, press, and justice were reserved. 6. The provincial ministers had no control over views. When the cabinet used the expression ultimate self-government, they probably contemplated an intervening period of 500 years. Lord Curzon, the Government of India Act 1919 forged fresh fetters for the people. Subhash Chandra Bose, the Montfort reforms were only a method for further draining India of her wealth and of prolonging her servitude. M.K. Gandhi, the hierarchy of the whole executive was open to almost every theoretical objection that the armory of political philosophy can supply. P. E. Roberts, never in the history of the world was such a hoax perpetrated upon a great people as England perpetrated upon India. When, in return for India's invaluable service during the war, we gave to the Indian nation such a discreditable, disgraceful, undemocratic, tyrannical constitution. Dr. Rutherford, British Member of Parliament. Devolution was intended to tie in a larger element of society to the status quo, but giving powers to local communities meant that energy such could have been applied against the imperial power were dissipated into communal rivalry. Division always worked for Britain's benefit. Division always worked for Britain's benefit. In Montfort, despotism proclaimed its benevolence. Walter Reed, keeping the jewel in the crown. 6. The provincial ministers had no control over finances and over the bureaucrats. This would lead to constant friction between the two. Ministers were often not consulted on important matters too. In fact, they could be overruled by the governor on any matter that the latter considered a special Congress reaction. The Congress met in a special session in August 1918 at Bombay under Hassan Imam's presidency and declared the reforms to be disappointing and unsatisfactory and demanded effective self-government instead. The Montfort reforms were termed unworthy and disappointing, a sunless dawn by Tilak, even as any peasant found them unworthy of England to offer and India to accept. Dhanyavad. Thank you so much.